You can't satisfy me.
Everyone in the Miami club went silent when Amani told Sok he couldn't satisfy her because the Korean Mafia boss had men killed for less disrespect. But her fearlessness made him obsessed, and 72 hours after their first kiss, she discovered she was carrying his child, and his enemies had already marked her for death to destroy the one man they couldn't break. The music pounded through the club like a heartbeat, and Amani moved through the crowd like she owned the place. Her dress hugged every curve, shimmering gold under the lights, and she knew every eye in the room followed her. She liked it that way. Power wasn't just about money or strength. Sometimes, it was about knowing you could make someone forget their own name with just one look. "Girl, you are on fire tonight," her friend Katara shouted over the music, laughing as they claimed the VIP section. The bottles came immediately, expensive champagne that sparkled like diamonds. This was their third night in Miami. Amani was determined to make it count. "I'm always on fire," Amani shot back, pouring herself a glass. The liquid was cold and perfect, just like everything else about this trip. Back home in Tanzania, she ran her own successful business, but here in America, she was just a woman enjoying her freedom. No responsibilities, no one to answer to, just pure fun. The men started approaching within minutes. First, a tall guy in a designer suit who stumbled over his words. Then, a DJ who promised to play her favorite song. Then a professional athlete whose name she pretended not to recognize. Amani turned them all away with a smile that was sweet on the surface but sharp underneath. None of them interested her. They were all the same, really. Too eager, too predictable, too easy. "You need to give someone a chance," Katara said, shaking her head. "We're on vacation. Live a little." "I am living," Amani replied, taking another sip. "I'm just selective about who I waste my time on." That's when she noticed him. He sat in the corner of the VIP section, separated from everyone else by a velvet rope and what looked like 3 serious men in dark suits. Unlike everyone else in the club who was trying to be seen, he seemed perfectly comfortable being overlooked. His suit was simple but clearly expensive, black with no tie, the top button of his white shirt undone. His dark hair was styled back neatly, and his face was calm, almost bored, as he observed the crowd. But it was his eyes that caught her attention. Even from across the room, she could feel them, sharp, intelligent, dangerous in a way that had nothing to do with muscles or loud behavior. "Who is that?" Amani asked, nodding toward him. Katara followed her gaze and shrugged. "No idea, but he's been watching you for the last 10 minutes. Something about that information sent a thrill down Amani's spine. She was used to being watched, but this felt different. This didn't feel like admiration or lust. It felt like being studied. She watched as he stood up, said something to one of the men beside him, and started walking toward her table. His movement was smooth, unhurried, like he had all the time in the world. The crowd seemed to part for him without him asking, and Amani noticed how people's expressions changed when they saw him. Fear, respect, something else she couldn't quite name. When he reached her table, he didn't smile like the others had. He simply looked at her with those dark, unreadable eyes. "Dance with me," he said. It wasn't a question, but it wasn't quite a command either. His voice was deep and carried a slight accent that made her skin tingle. Amani leaned back in her seat, letting her eyes travel slowly over him. Up close, he was even more attractive. Strong jawline, perfect skin. Lips that looked like they rarely smiled but would be devastating when they did. "No," she said simply. For the first time, his expression changed. One eyebrow raised slightly, like he wasn't sure he'd attention. "Heard her correctly." "No?" he repeated. "That's what I said." Amani crossed her legs slowly, enjoying the way his eyes flickered down for just a second before returning to her face. "I don't dance with men who don't ask properly. And I definitely don't dance with men who think they can just walk up and expect me to follow." Katara made a small sound beside her, something between a gasp and a laugh. But Amani kept her eyes locked on the stranger. Something shifted in his expression. Not anger, like she expected. Something else. Interest, maybe. Or amusement. "My apologies," he said, and this time there was the ghost of a smile on his lips. "Would you do me the honor of dancing with me?" "Still no," Amani replied, taking a slow sip of her champagne. "I'm not interested." Now he did smile, and it transformed his entire face. Suddenly, he looked younger, more approachable, but also somehow more dangerous, like a predator showing its teeth. "You're not interested," he repeated slowly, like he was tasting the words. "That's rare. Maybe you're just used to easy women," Amani said, feeling bold. The champagne was warm in her veins, and she liked this game they were playing. "I'm not easy." He studied her for a long moment, and Amani felt heat crawl up her neck under his gaze. Then he did something unexpected. He sat down at her table, completely uninvited, and poured himself a glass of her champagne. "Hey," Katara protested, but one look from him made her quiet. "Tell me something," he said, his eyes never leaving Amani's face. "What would it take to interest you?" Amani laughed, a rich sound that made his smile widen. "More than you have, I promise you that. Try me." "Fine." Amani leaned forward, close enough to smell his cologne. It was subtle and expensive, like everything else about him. "I've dated millionaires. I've been with men who wrote me poetry and bought me diamonds. I've had men promise me the world." She paused, letting her words sink in. "And none of them could keep my attention for more than a month. So whatever you're selling, I'm not buying." Instead of being discouraged, he looked even more intrigued. "What if I'm not trying to sell you anything? What if I'm just curious about the woman who thinks she's too good for everyone in this room?" "I don't think I'm too good," Amani corrected. "I know what I want, and I know when someone can't give it to me." "And you know this after looking at me for 5 minutes?" "I know this after a lifetime of being disappointed," Amani replied. Then, because she couldn't help herself, she added, "You seem nice enough, rich, clearly. Handsome, I'll admit, but at the end of the day, you're just another man who thinks his money and his looks are enough. And let me tell you a secret." She leaned even closer, until her lips were inches from his ear. "You can't satisfy me." She felt him go still beside her. The air between them suddenly felt electric, charged with something Amani couldn't quite name. When she pulled back to look at his face, his expression had changed completely. His eyes had darkened, and that easy smile was gone. Now he looked at her like she was a puzzle he was determined to solve. "You can't satisfy me," he repeated quietly, like he was memorizing the words. "That's quite a statement." "It's the truth," Amani said with a shrug, trying to ignore the way her heart was racing. "Nothing personal. You're just not my type." "And what is your type?" "Someone who surprises me. Someone who challenges me. Someone who doesn't give up just because I say no." She smiled. "Someone who can prove me wrong." The silence stretched between them, thick and heavy. The club continued to pulse around them, but Amani felt like they were in their own private bubble. She could see his mind working behind those dark eyes, calculating, planning. Finally, he spoke. 3 days. "What?" "Give me 3 days to prove you wrong." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a business card, placing it on the table between them. 3 dinners, 3 chances to show you that everything you just said is wrong. If after 3 days you still think I can't satisfy you, I'll leave you alone forever." Amani picked up the card. It was simple, expensive paper with just a name and phone number. Sock. "No last name, no title, no company. That's it?" she asked. "Just your name? That's all you need to know. For now." He stood up, buttoning his jacket. "Tomorrow night, 8 o'clock. I'll send a car for you." "I didn't say yes," Amani pointed out. He looked down at her, and his smile was back. But this time, it held a promise that made her stomach flip. "You will, because you're curious. Because you want to know if I'm different from all those other men who disappointed you. And because deep down, you want to be wrong about me." Before she could respond, he leaned down, one hand bracing on the table beside her. His face was so close, she could feel his breath on her lips. "I'm going to enjoy proving you wrong, Amani," he whispered. "Every single moment of it." Then his lips were on hers, firm and demanding and absolutely perfect. The kiss lasted only seconds, but it felt like the whole world stopped. Amani's eyes fluttered closed, and she felt herself leaning into him, her hand coming up to grip his jacket. Heat exploded through her body, and for a moment, she forgot where she was. When he pulled away, she was breathless. Her lips tingled, and her mind was spinning. "How did you know my name?" she managed to ask. His smile was mysterious now, knowing. "I make it my business to know interesting things. Tomorrow, 8 o'clock. Don't make me wait." And then he was gone, disappearing back into the crowd as smoothly as he'd appeared. Amani sat there, her fingers pressed to her lips, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might break through her chest. "Girl," Katara breathed beside her. "What just happened?" Amani didn't answer. She was staring at the business card in her hand, at the name written there in simple black letters. Sock. Something about him was different. Something about the way he'd looked at her, kissed her, challenged her. Something that made her skin feel too tight and her blood run hot. She'd meant what she said. She didn't think any man could satisfy her. She'd been disappointed too many times by men who promised everything and delivered nothing. But this Sock, with his mysterious eyes and his confident smile and his kiss that still burned on her lips, made her want to be proven wrong, made her want to take his challenge, made her want to see exactly what would happen if she gave him his 3 days. Amani looked at her phone, already knowing what she would do. Tomorrow night, 8 o'clock, she would go. Not because he'd told her to, but because for the first time in years, someone had made her feel something other than boredom. She saved his number, her fingers trembling slightly. Then she finished her champagne in one long drink, trying to calm the butterflies raging in her stomach. 3 days, 3 chances, 3 opportunities for him to prove he was different, or 3 more disappointments to add to her list. Either way, Amani couldn't wait to find out. The black car that arrived at exactly 8 o'clock was unlike anything Amani had expected. Sleek, expensive, with windows so dark she couldn't see inside. The driver, a stern-faced man in a perfect suit, opened the door without a word. No smile, no greeting, just a gesture that clearly meant, "Get in." Amani hesitated for only a moment. She dressed carefully for tonight, choosing a deep red dress that showed just enough skin to be interesting. Her heels were high, her hair was perfect, and she'd spent an hour on her makeup. If Sok wanted to impress her, she was going to make sure she looked impossible to impress. The drive took them through downtown Miami, past the regular tourist areas, and into a neighborhood where the buildings reached, toward the sky like glass giants. The car pulled up to one of the tallest towers, and Amani's breath caught. She'd seen expensive before, but this was something else. This was the kind of place where millionaires lived. The driver opened her door, and another man appeared, this one younger but just as serious. "This way, please." They led her through a private entrance, past a security desk where the guards straightened up immediately when they saw her escorts. The elevator was all mirrors and gold, and it climbed so fast her ears popped. The numbers went higher and higher, past the 20th floor, past the 30th, until finally stopping at the very top. The doors opened directly into an apartment. No hallway, no other doors, just straight into the most beautiful space Amani had ever seen. Floor-to-ceiling windows showed the entire city spread out below, the ocean beyond it glittering with moonlight. The furniture was modern and minimalist, all clean lines and expensive materials. Art hung on the walls, pieces that looked like they belonged in museums. And standing by the windows, looking out at the view, was Sayok. He turned when he heard the elevator, and Amani's heart did that stupid fluttering thing again. He wore dark slacks and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled up, showing strong forearms. His hair was slightly messy, like he'd been running his hands through it. He looked relaxed, comfortable, completely at ease in this palace in the sky. "You came," he said, and his smile was genuine. "I keep my promises," Amani replied, stepping into the apartment. The elevator doors closed behind her, and suddenly she realized they were alone. "Nice place. What do you do again?" "I didn't say." Sok moved toward her, and Amani forced herself to stand still. "But let's eat first. I hope you're hungry." He led her to a balcony she hadn't noticed, one that wrapped around the side of the building. A table was set up there, covered in white cloth and candles, with dishes that smelled incredible. The night air was warm, and the city noise was just a distant hum this high up. "You cooked?" Amani asked, surprised. "I had it prepared," Sok admitted, pulling out her chair. "But I chose everything myself, Korean food mixed with some African flavors. I did some research on Tanzanian cuisine." Amani sat down, trying not to show how impressed she was. The food was incredible, each dish more delicious than the last. They ate and talked, and Amani found herself relaxing despite her determination to stay guarded. Sok was different from other men she'd dated. He didn't brag about his money or his achievements. He asked her questions about her life, her business, her dreams. He listened when she talked, really listened, like every word mattered, and when he spoke, his voice was low and intimate, making her lean closer to hear him better. "You're very good at this," Amani said after her second glass of wine. "The perfect gentleman, but I'm still waiting for the catch." "The catch? Every man has one, some secret they're hiding, some reason they're too good to be true." She studied his face in the candlelight. "What's yours?" Sok was quiet for a moment, his fingers playing with his wine glass. "What if I told you I'm not a good man?" "I'd say I already guessed that," Amani replied. "Good men don't live in places like this. They don't have drivers who look like they could kill someone with their bare hands. They don't make women feel like they're dancing on the edge of something dangerous." His eyes met hers, and the intensity in them made her breath catch. "Does that scare you? Should it?" Instead of answering, Sok stood up and offered his hand. "Dance with me, for real this time." There was no music, but Amani took his hand anyway. He pulled her close, one hand on her waist, the other holding hers. They swayed slowly, and Amani could feel the heat of his body through their clothes. Her heart was racing again, and she didn't know if it was from fear or excitement or something else entirely. "You asked what I do," Sok said quietly, his lips close to her ear. "The truth is complicated." "Try me," Amani whispered back. "I run an organization, a very powerful one. People fear me, respect me. Obey me." His hand tightened slightly on her waist. "I'm not a good man, Amani. I've done things that would probably horrify you. But I'm honest about what I am." Amani pulled back to look at his face. "You're telling me you're some kind of criminal? I'm telling you I'm the man people call when they need problems solved, when they need protection, when they need someone strong enough to stand against enemies." His eyes searched hers. "I'm telling you that the moment you walked into my world, you became important, and I protect what's important to me." She should have been scared, should have pulled away, demanded to leave, run back to her hotel and forgotten about this mysterious man. But instead, Amani felt her pulse quicken. With excitement, "Show me," she said. "Show you what?" "Show me who you really are. Not this gentleman act, not the sweet date and the perfect food. Show me the man everyone fears." Something changed in Sok's expression. His eyes grew darker, more intense. His grip on her waist became firmer, almost possessive. When he spoke, his voice was rougher, deeper. "You don't know what you're asking for." "Yes, I do," Amani breathed. "I'm asking you to stop holding back. I'm asking you to prove that you're different from everyone else. I'm asking you to satisfy me." The words hung between them like a challenge. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Sok's hand came up to cup her face, his thumb brushing across her lower lip. "If I start," he said quietly, "I won't stop. Once I show you who I really am, there's no going back. You'll be mine, Amani, completely, and I don't share." The possessiveness in his voice should have bothered her. Instead, it sent heat flooding through her body. "Then don't stop." Sok's control snapped. His mouth crashed down on hers, and this kiss was nothing like the gentle one from last night. This was hungry, demanding, claiming. His hands moved to her waist, pulling her flush against him, and Amani gasped at the contact. She could feel every hard plane of his body, the strength in his arms, the way his heart pounded against her chest. Her hands fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer, needing more. His lips moved from her mouth to her jaw, then down her neck, finding spots that made her knees weak. She tilted her head back, giving him access, lost in the sensation. "Tell me to stop," Sok murmured against her skin. "Tell me this is too fast, too much. Don't you dare stop." Amani gasped, her fingers threading through his hair. He lifted her easily, carrying her inside to a couch that faced those enormous windows. The city lights sparkled below them, but Amani only had eyes for Sok. He laid her down gently, then covered her body with his weight perfect and right. They kissed like they were starving, like they'd been waiting for this moment forever. His hands explored her curves, learning every inch of her, and Amani's body responded like it never had before. Every touch sent electricity through her veins. Every whispered word in her ear made her heart race faster. "You're so beautiful," Siok breathed, his lips trailing down her throat. "So perfect. I knew the moment I saw you that you were going to change everything." "Sok," Amani whispered, her hands sliding under his shirt, feeling the muscles of his back. "Please." He looked down at her, his eyes almost black with desire. Please, what? Show me, prove me wrong. Make me forget every other man who disappointed me. Something fierce and triumphant flashed across his face. That's exactly what I'm going to do. The night blurred into a series of moments Amani knew she'd never forget. Sock's hands on her skin, his lips everywhere, his voice rough and commanding and tender all at once. He took his time, learning what made her gasp, what made her arch against him, what made her call his name. And when they finally came together, it was perfect and intense and absolutely nothing like Amani had experienced before. Later, they lay tangled together on the couch, the city lights casting patterns across their skin. Amani's head rested on Sock's chest, listening to his heartbeat slow. His fingers traced lazy patterns on her bare shoulder. I was wrong, she admitted quietly. About what? His voice was sleepy, satisfied. About you. About thinking you couldn't satisfy me. She lifted her head to look at him. You're not like anyone else. Soak smiled, pulling her closer. Good, because you're not leaving my life now. You understand that, don't you? There was something serious in his tone, something that should have worried her. But Amani just smiled and kissed him softly. I don't want to leave. Then don't. His arms tightened around. Stay here tonight. Tomorrow night. Every night. That's moving kind of fast, Amani pointed out, though her heart leaped at the idea. I know what I want, Sock replied, his eyes intense on hers. And I always get what I want. The question is, do you want it too? Amani thought about her hotel room, about going back to her regular life, about pretending this night hadn't changed everything. Then she looked at Sock, at this dangerous, fascinating man who'd proven every assumption wrong and knew her answer. Yes, she whispered, I want it too. The helicopter ride over the crystal blue water took Amani's breath away. Sock sat beside her, his hand warm over hers, pointing out islands and boats below. She'd woken up that morning in his penthouse, wrapped in silk sheets that cost more than her monthly rent, with Sock watching her sleep like she was something precious. Pack light, he'd said with that mysterious smile. We're leaving for the weekend. Now, as the helicopter siding SUV descended toward a private island in the Florida Keys, Amani understood what he meant by getting away from everything. The beach house sat right on white sand, surrounded by palm trees and nothing else for miles. No neighbors, no city noise, just ocean and sky and privacy. The moment they landed, Soak swept her into his arms and carried her across the sand toward the house. Amani laughed, wrapping her arms around his neck. I can walk, you know, she teased. I know, he replied, kicking open the door, but I like holding you. The house was beautiful in a simple way, all open windows and breezy curtains, but Soak didn't give her a tour. Instead, he carried her straight to the bedroom, laying her down on a bed covered in soft white linens. Sunlight streamed through the windows, painting golden patterns across his face as he looked down at her. 3 days, he said quietly. Just you and me. No phones, no business, no world outside this place. Amani reached up to touch his face, feeling the slight stubble on his jaw. What will we do for 3 whole days? His smile was wicked. I have some ideas. They spent the first hours making love slowly, learning each other's bodies in the bright daylight. Soak was patient and thorough, taking his time to discover what made Amani shiver with pleasure. When she cried out his name, he whispered Korean words against her skin that sounded like prayers. Afterward, they lay tangled together, the ocean breeze cooling their heated skin. Amani traced patterns on his chest, feeling more content than she'd ever felt in her life. Tell me about Korea, she said softly. About your life before all this. Sock was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then he began to speak, his voice distant with memory. I was 17 when I came to America. My father died, and my mother couldn't afford to keep me in school. A man offered me work in Miami, said I could make money and send it home. He paused, his hand stroking her hair, absently. I didn't know what kind of work it would be. By the time I understood, it was too late to leave. But you stayed, Amani said, not judging, just understanding. I stayed because I was good at it. Better than good. I was smart enough to see opportunities, ruthless enough to take them, and lucky enough to survive when others didn't. His arms tightened around her. I built an empire from nothing. But it cost me everything normal, everything soft, until you—" Amani lifted her head to look at him. "What do you mean?" "You make me feel human again," Sok said simply. "When I'm with you, I'm not the boss everyone fears. I'm just a man who wants to make you smile, who wants to hear you laugh, who wants to wake up next to you every morning." The honesty in his voice made her chest ache. She kissed him softly, trying to pour all her feelings into that single touch. "Tell me about Tanzania," he said when they finally pulled apart. "About the girl you were before you became this confident woman who challenges dangerous men in nightclubs." So Amani told him. About growing up in Dar es Salaam, about her parents who worked hard to give her opportunities, about starting her business with nothing but determination and refusing to let anyone tell her she couldn't succeed, about her dreams of seeing the world, of having adventures, of never settling for ordinary. "I wanted excitement," she admitted. "I wanted passion. I dated men who seemed successful, but they were all so boring underneath. They wanted me to be pretty and quiet and grateful. They didn't want me to challenge them." "I want you to challenge me," Sok said, rolling over so he was above her again. "I want you to push back when I'm being stubborn. I want you to call me out when I'm wrong. I want all of you, Amani, not some watered-down version you think I can handle." She pulled him down for another kiss, and soon they were lost in each other again. The afternoon disappeared into evening as they explored their connection, each touch more electric than the last. Later, as the sun began to set, they finally left the bed. Sok led her to an outdoor shower surrounded by tropical plants, where they washed each other under the warm spray. His hands were gentle as they moved over her body, and Amani felt herself falling deeper with every moment. That evening, 2 of Sok's men arrived with dinner and supplies. Amani recognized the serious-faced driver from her first night, and with him was a younger man with kind eyes. "This is Taemin," Sok introduced. "My right hand, and that's Dong-hyun, who keeps me alive." Both men bowed respectfully to Amani, and she saw something surprising in their faces. Not the cold professionalism she expected, but genuine warmth, like they were happy to see Sok with someone. "Boss is different with you," Taemin said in careful English as he set up their dinner on the beach. "More relaxed, more happy." "He's been alone too long," Dong-hyun added, ignoring Sok's warning look. "Too serious, too worried. You are good for him." After they left, Sok seemed almost embarrassed. "They talk too much." "They care about you," Amani said, squeezing his hand. "That's nice. It means you're not just the monster you pretend to be." "I'm not pretending," Seok said seriously. "The things I've done, the person I am in that world, it's all real. But with you, I can be something else too." They ate dinner on the beach as stars appeared overhead. The food was delicious, but Amani barely tasted it. She was too focused on Sok, on the way the firelight played across his features, on the way he looked at her like she was his whole world. "Dance with me," Sok said suddenly, standing and offering his hand. "There's no music," Amani pointed out, laughing. "We don't need music." He pulled her close, and they swayed together in the sand, the ocean providing its own rhythm. Amani rested her head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat, feeling more at peace than she'd ever felt. "I'm falling in love with you," she whispered, the words escaping before she could stop them. Sok went very still. Then, he tilted her face up, his eyes intense and burning in the firelight. "Say it again," he demanded. "I'm falling in love with you," Amani repeated, stronger this time. "I know it's crazy. I know it's fast. I know your world is dangerous and complicated, but I can't help it. You make me feel things I've never felt before." "Amani," he breathed, and then his mouth was on hers, kissing her with a desperation that made her knees weak. When he finally pulled back, his hands were shaking as they cupped her face. "I love you. I've loved you since that first night when you looked at me like I was nobody special. When you challenged me, when you made me work for your attention." "You love me?" Amani asked, needing to hear it again. "I love you so much it terrifies me," Seok admitted. "I've never let anyone this close, never let anyone matter this much. Because in my world, the people you love become targets, weaknesses that enemies can exploit." "Then we'll be careful," Amani said, though fear crept into her heart. "No," Sok said firmly. "I'll be careful. I'll protect you. No one will ever hurt you, Amani. I promise you that." He kissed her again, and then he was pulling her down onto the sand, their bodies coming together under the stars. The ocean crashed nearby as they made love with new intensity, their confessions adding depth to every touch. When Amani cried out, it wasn't just from pleasure, but from the overwhelming emotion of being truly seen, truly wanted, truly loved. Afterward, they lay together on a blanket, wrapped in each other's arms. Sok played with her fingers, his expression distant. "I'm lonely," he said quietly. "Have been for years. At the top, there's no one to trust completely, no one to be vulnerable with. Everyone wants something from you. Everyone fears you too much to be honest." He looked at her. "But you're not afraid of me. You see who I really am and you're still here." "I'm here because of who you really are," Amani replied. "Yes, you're powerful and dangerous, but you're also kind when you don't have to be. Gentle when others would be rough. You listen to me. You challenge me. You make me feel alive. You make me feel human," Sok said. "Like I'm more than just the monster everyone thinks I am." "You are more," Amani insisted. "So much more." They talked through the night, sharing secrets and dreams and fears. Siok told her about the pressure of leading his organization, about the constant threat of betrayal, about the weight of responsibility for hundreds of people who depended on him. Amani told him about her fear of settling, of becoming ordinary, of losing herself in someone else's expectations. "You could never be ordinary," Sok said, kissing her temple. "You're extraordinary, Amani. Fierce and brilliant and brave. The kind of woman who walks into a dangerous man's life and changes everything." As dawn began to break over the ocean, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, they made love again. Slowly this time, savoring every moment, every touch, every whispered word of love. "I don't want this weekend to end," Amani admitted, as they watched the sunrise together. "It doesn't have to," Sok replied. "Move in with me, officially. Stay in Miami. Build your business here. Let me be part of your life, and you be part of mine." "That's a big step," Amani said, though her heart was already saying yes. "I know, but I also know that I've never been more sure of anything." He turned her to face him, his eyes serious. "I love you, Amani. I want you in my life permanently. I want to wake up next to you every morning. I want to build something real with you, something that matters more than power or money or fear." Amani looked into his eyes and saw her future there, scary and exciting and absolutely right. "Yes," she said. "Yes to all of it." Siok's smile was brilliant, transforming his usually serious face into something young and joyful. He swept her up, spinning her around as she laughed, both of them giddy with happiness and new love and endless possibilities. But as the sun rose higher, bringing them back toward reality, Amani felt a small flutter of worry in her stomach. Sok's world was dangerous. His enemies were real. And now that she'd agreed to be part of his life, she'd become a target too. She pushed the thought away, focusing instead on Sok's arms around her, his lips on hers, his promises of protection and forever. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The return to Miami felt different. Amani noticed it immediately as their car pulled up to Sok's building. More guards than before, tighter security. The way Donghyun's hand stayed near his jacket, where she now knew he kept a gun. "Is something wrong?" she asked as they rode the elevator up. Sok's expression was carefully neutral, just being cautious. "Word got out that I have someone important to me now. It makes certain people curious." "Curious how?" Amani pressed, not liking the tension in his shoulders. "The kind of curious I'm handling," he replied, kissing her forehead. "Don't worry about it." But Amani did worry. Over the next few days, she noticed changes. Sok was more distracted during their dinners. He took calls at odd hours, speaking rapid Korean in tones that made her skin prickle. And there were always men around now, watching, protecting, creating a barrier between them and the rest of the world. She'd moved her things into his penthouse, turning one of his spare rooms into an office for her business. But working from home felt strange when she knew armed guards stood outside the door, when she knew Sok was somewhere in the building, dealing with things he wouldn't tell her about. "I'm going to my old apartment to grab some last boxes," Amani announced one afternoon. Sok was in a meeting in his study, and she was restless from being cooped up. Donghyun appeared immediately. "I'll drive you, and Tae-min will come along. I can take an Uber," Amani protested. "Boss's orders," Donghyun said firmly. You don't go anywhere without protection now." The words should have felt romantic, but instead they felt ominous. Still, Amani didn't argue. She was starting to understand that Sok's world had rules, and fighting them wouldn't keep her safe. Her old apartment felt like a memory from another life. Had it really been only 2 weeks since she'd lived here? Since she'd been just a tourist visiting Miami, with no idea that a mysterious Korean man would change everything. She was packing the last of her clothes when she heard it. A sound from the living room that didn't belong. Tae-min had been standing guard out there while she packed. "Tae-min?" she called, stepping toward the door. The young man stumbled into view, blood streaming from his head. "Run!" he gasped. "Call Sok and run!" But before Amani could move, men burst through the door. 3 of them, big and mean-looking, with guns drawn. Tae-min tried to fight, but one of them hit him hard enough to knock him unconscious. "Don't hurt her," the leader said in accented English. "Boss wants her alive." Terror flooded through Amani as rough hands grabbed her. She fought, kicking and screaming, but they were too strong. Something pressed over her mouth and nose, a cloth that smelled sweet and chemical. Her vision started to blur, and the last thing she saw before darkness took her was Tae-min's unconscious form on her apartment floor. She woke up to the sound of shouting. Her head pounded, and her mouth tasted like metal. Slowly, the world came into focus. She was in some kind of warehouse, tied to a chair, surrounded by concrete and shadows. "She's awake," someone said. "Tell Mr. Park." A man approached, older with calculating eyes. "Hello, Miss Amani. I apologize for the rough treatment, but you understand, business is business." "Who are you?" Amani demanded, trying to keep her voice steady despite her racing heart. "Someone who has a problem with your boyfriend," the man replied. "Sok has been very troublesome lately, taking territory that doesn't belong to him, interfering with operations. We need to send him a message about respecting boundaries." "So you kidnapped me?" Amani's mind was racing, trying to think of a way out. "We borrowed you," the man corrected, with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Sok will come for you, and when he does, we'll be ready. 2 birds, 1 stone, as they say." Fear turned to anger in Amani's chest. "You're using me as bait. Smart girl. Now, someone call Sok and tell him where to find his precious girlfriend." The next hour was the longest of Amani's life. She sat in that cold warehouse, listening to the men talk about Sok like he was already dead. They seemed confident, sure that their trap would work, but they didn't know Sok like she didn't understand what he was capable of when someone threatened what was his. When the shooting started, it was sudden and violent. One moment, silence. The next, explosions of gunfire and shouting. The men guarding Amani ran toward the commotion, leaving her alone in the shadows. Then Sok appeared. She'd never seen him like this. His face was a mask of cold fury, his movements efficient and deadly. He had a gun in each hand, and he moved through the warehouse like a dancer, taking down anyone in his path. This wasn't the gentle man who'd made love to her under the stars. This was the monster everyone feared, and he was terrifying. But when his eyes found her, something shifted. The coldness melted into relief and rage mixed together. "Cover me," he shouted to his men, and then he was running toward her, sliding to his knees beside her chair. His hands shook as he cut through the ropes binding her. "Are you hurt? Did they touch you? Tell me you're okay." "I'm okay," Amani managed, though she was trembling. "Sok, I'm okay." He pulled her into his arms, crushing her against his chest. She could feel his heart pounding, feel the tension vibrating through his body. "I'm going to kill every single one of them," he said, his voice deadly calm. "Every person who touched you, every person who thought they could use you against me." "Sok," Amani started, but he was already pulling away, his face hardening again. "Stay here with Dong-hyun," he ordered. "Don't move until I come back." Then he was gone, disappearing into the shadows of the warehouse. Amani heard more gunshots, more shouting, and then finally, silence. When Sok returned, there was blood on his shirt, though she didn't think it was his. His eyes were still cold, still dangerous, but they softened when he looked at her. "It's done," he said simply. "You're safe now." The ride back to his penthouse was quiet. Seok held her the entire time, his arms wrapped around her like he was afraid she'd disappear. When they finally got inside, away from everyone else, something in him broke. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice rough. This is my fault. I should have protected you better. Should have seen this coming. Should have kept you away from my world until I could make sure you were safe. Stop, Amani said firmly. She took his face in her hands, making him look at her. Stop apologizing for things you can't control. Those men made their choice. You saved me. That's what matters. I was so scared, Sok admitted, and she could see tears in his eyes. When Taemin called and said you were taken, I felt something I haven't felt in years. Terror. Real, actual terror that I might lose you. You didn't lose me, Amani said softly. I'm right here. You saw what I am tonight, Sok continued. The violence, the killing, the monster everyone whispers about. If you want to leave, I'll understand. I'll keep you safe from a distance, but I'll let you go. Amani looked at this powerful, dangerous man who was offering to let her walk away despite how much it would hurt him. And she realized something important. She wasn't afraid of his dark side. She was in awe of it. I'm not going anywhere, she said firmly. Yes, I saw what you're capable of. And you know what? I'm glad. I'm glad you're strong enough to protect me. I'm glad you're ruthless enough to eliminate threats. I'm glad you love me enough to become that monster when necessary. Amani, he breathed. I love you, she continued. All of you. The gentle man who brings me breakfast in bed. The passionate lover who makes me forget my own name. And yes, the dangerous boss who tears apart anyone who threatens what's his. I love all of it, because it's all you. Something shifted in Seok's expression. The guilt and fear melted away, replaced by pure need. He pulled her to him, his mouth finding hers in a kiss that was desperate and claiming and full of relief. They made it as far as the couch before their control snapped. Clothes disappeared as they came together with frantic intensity. Amani needed to feel him, needed to prove they were both alive and safe and together. Their lovemaking was rough and emotional, both of them crying and gasping and holding each other like lifelines. Afterward, wrapped in each other's arms on the floor where they'd ended up, Sok whispered against her hair, I can't live without you. I tried to imagine it tonight, tried to prepare myself for the possibility of losing you, and I couldn't. You're everything to me, Amani. Everything that matters. Then don't live without me, Amani replied. Keep me, protect me, love me. Let me be part of your world, darkness and all. You're sure? Seok asked, pulling back to look at her. Because once I claim you completely, I won't ever let you go. You'll be mine forever. Promise? Amani asked with a small smile. Promise, Sok said seriously. I'll put a ring on your finger, make you my wife, bind you to me in every way possible, build a life with you, that's ours alone. Is that a proposal? Amani teased, though her heart was racing. Not yet, Sok replied. When I propose, it'll be perfect, romantic, everything you deserve, but I'm making you a promise right now. I'm going to marry you, Amani. I'm going to make you mine in every way that matters. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret choosing me. Amani kissed him softly. I could never regret you. They made love again, slowly this time, savoring each touch and whisper. And as Amani fell asleep in Seok's arms, safe and loved and completely his, she knew that whatever came next, they would face it together. The yacht rocked gently against the dock as Amani stepped aboard, her hand in Seok's. The sun was beginning its descent toward the horizon, painting the Key West sky in shades of orange and pink that looked almost unreal. She'd thought they were just going for a romantic dinner cruise, something to celebrate 3 months of being together. 3 months of falling deeper in love every single day. You look beautiful, Sok said, his eyes warm as they traveled over her white sundress. She'd chosen it because he'd once mentioned how much he loved seeing her in light colors, how it made her dark skin glow like polished mahogany. You're staring, Amani teased, though she loved when he looked at her like that, like she was the only woman in the world. I can't help it, he replied, pulling her close. Every time I look at you, I still can't believe you're real, that you chose me. The yacht pulled away from the dock, cutting smoothly through the clear blue water. Sok had arranged everything perfectly, as he always did. Champagne chilling in a bucket, rose petals scattered across the deck, soft music playing from hidden speakers. But Amani noticed he seemed nervous, which was unusual for a man who faced dangerous situations without blinking. Are you okay? she asked as they stood at the railing watching the shore grow distant. More than okay, Sok replied, but his hand trembled slightly as he raised his champagne glass. I want to make a toast to the woman who walked into my life and changed everything, who looked at me like I was nobody special and made me work to prove otherwise, who saw the monster everyone fears and loved me anyway. Amani clinked her glass against his, warmth spreading through her chest. That's beautiful. But you're still acting weird. Sok laughed, some of the tension leaving his shoulders. You know me too well. He set down his glass and took both her hands in his. Amani, these past 3 months have been the happiest of my life. You've given me something I never thought I'd have. Peace, joy, a reason to want more than just power and respect. Sok, Amani started, her heart beginning to race as she realized what was happening. Let me finish, he said gently, and then he was lowering himself to one knee. The yacht tilted slightly with the waves, and the setting sun cast golden light across his serious face. I know we haven't been together long by normal standards, but nothing about us has ever been normal. From that first night when you challenged me, I knew you were going to be important. I just didn't know you'd become everything. Tears were already forming in Amani's eyes. Are you asking what I think you're asking? Sok pulled out a small velvet box, opening it to reveal the most stunning ring Amani had ever seen. A large diamond surrounded by smaller stones that caught the light and threw rainbows across the deck. Amani McKenna, Sok said, his voice steady and sure despite the emotion in his eyes. Will you marry me? Will you be my wife, my partner, my forever? Will you let me spend the rest of my life proving that I can satisfy you in every possible way? The callback to her words from that first night made her laugh, even as tears spilled down her cheeks. Yes, she said without hesitation. Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes. Sok stood, sliding the ring onto her finger with hands that shook slightly. Then he was kissing her, deep and passionate, as the yacht rocked beneath them and the sun painted everything gold. When they finally pulled apart, both were breathless and grinning like fools. I love you, Sok said, more than I knew it was possible to love anyone. I love you too, Amani replied, admiring the way her ring sparkled. When do you want to do this? Should we plan a big wedding? Invite everyone? Actually, Sok said, looking almost shy, I was hoping we could do it soon. Very soon. I've already arranged everything at a resort here in Key West. Small ceremony, just our closest people. This weekend, if you'll agree. This weekend? Amani gasped. That's 3 days away. I know it's fast, Sok admitted. But I don't want to wait. I've waited my whole life to find you, Amani. Now that I have you, every day we're not married feels like wasted time. Amani looked at this powerful man who was asking her to marry him in 3 days, and she couldn't find a single reason to say no. Okay, she said. Let's do it. Let's get married this weekend. The joy on Sok's face was worth any rushing. He swept her into his arms, spinning her around as she laughed, both of them giddy with happiness and plans and the promise of forever. That night, back at the resort where Sok had booked them a suite, they celebrated their engagement properly. Their lovemaking was slow and reverent, both of them savoring every touch, every kiss, every whispered promise. Sok worshipped her body like it was something sacred, and Amani showed him with her hands and mouth exactly how much she loved him. 3 days, Sok murmured against her skin as they lay tangled together afterward. In 3 days, you'll be my wife. Mrs. Sok, Amani tested the name, smiling. I like how that sounds. The next days passed in a blur of preparation. Sok had indeed arranged everything. A designer arrived with 3 wedding dresses for Amani to choose from. A coordinator handled all the details. Taemin and Donghyun worked to ensure security was perfect while still keeping the ceremony intimate and romantic. But there was one important thing Amani needed to do herself. On the morning before the wedding, she set up her laptop for a video call home to Tanzania. Her mother's face appeared on screen, followed by her father and 2 younger brothers. Amani, her mother exclaimed, it's so good to see you. Are you still in America? I am, Mama, Amani said, her heart pounding. Actually, I have someone I want you to meet. She gestured for Sok to join her on camera. He'd been nervous about this call, worried that her parents wouldn't approve of him or his lifestyle. But he sat beside her now, his posture straight and respectful. Mama, Papa, this is Sok. He's asked me to marry him, and I said yes. The wedding is tomorrow." There was a moment of shocked silence. Then her mother found her voice. "Tomorrow? Amani, what's the rush? We don't know this man. We can't even be there." "I know, Mama, and I'm sorry," Amani said gently. "But Sok is the man I want to spend my life with. I love him more than I can explain, and he treats me like I'm the most precious thing in his world." Sok cleared his throat, speaking directly to the camera. "Mr. and Mrs. McKenna, I understand your concerns. Your daughter is an incredible woman, and you raised her to be strong and independent and fearless. I promise you, I will spend every day of my life honoring that. I will protect her, cherish her, and make sure she has everything she needs to be happy." "What do you do for work?" Amani's father asked, his tone suspicious. "I run several businesses here in Miami," Seok replied carefully. "Import and export primarily. I can provide for your daughter comfortably." They talked for over an hour. Amani watched as Seok patiently answered her parents' questions, saw how he showed them respect without being obsequious. By the end of the call, her mother was smiling, and even her father looked less concerned. "Take care of our daughter," her father said finally. "And Amani, bring him home to meet us properly soon." "I will, Papa," Amani promised. "I love you all." After the call ended, Sok pulled her into his arms. "That went better than I expected." "They love me," Amani said, "which means they'll love who I love. But Sok, you know we'll have to tell them eventually about what you really do." "I know," he said seriously, "and I will. But first, let me marry you. Let me make you mine officially. Then we'll figure out the rest together." That night, following tradition, they stayed in separate rooms. Amani spent the evening with Katara, who'd flown in for the wedding, getting her nails done and talking about marriage and the future. "Are you sure about this?" Katara asked as they sipped wine on the balcony. "It's so fast, girl. What if there are things about him you don't know yet?" "I know everything I need to know," Amani replied. "I know he loves me. I know he'd die to protect me. I know that when I'm with him, I feel more alive than I've ever felt. That's enough." But alone in her room later, Amani couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about tomorrow, about becoming Sok's wife, about binding herself to a man whose world was dangerous and complicated. Was she making the right choice? Was she being foolish? Then her phone buzzed with a message from Sok. "Can't sleep. Missing you. Can't wait to see you walking toward me tomorrow. I love you." All her doubts melted away. She texted back, "I love you too. See you at the altar." The wedding day dawned clear and perfect. Amani stood in her room at the resort, wearing a dress that made her feel like a princess. It was simple but elegant, white silk that hugged her curves before flowing out in a small train. Her hair was styled in natural curls pinned back with fresh flowers. She wore minimal jewelry except for the engagement ring that sparkled on her finger. "You look stunning," Katara said, tears in her eyes. "He's going to lose his mind when he sees you." The ceremony was set up on the beach at sunset, just like their engagement. White chairs arranged in neat rows, an archway covered in flowers, the ocean providing the soundtrack. Only about 20 people were present, Sok's most trusted men and their partners, a few business associates who were also friends, the officiant who would marry them. As the music started and Amani began her walk down the makeshift aisle, she saw Sok waiting at the altar. He wore a perfectly tailored black suit, his hair styled back, his expression one of awe as he watched her approach. And in that moment, Amani knew with absolute certainty that she was making the right choice. When she reached him, Sok took her hands, his grip firm and sure. "You're so beautiful," he whispered. "I'm the luckiest man alive." The ceremony was short but meaningful. They exchanged traditional vows, promising to love and honor each other through everything life threw at them. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, Sok kissed her so deeply that everyone cheered. The reception was small and intimate, held in a private dining room at the resort. They ate and drank and danced, surrounded by people who genuinely cared about them. But Amani couldn't wait for it to end. She wanted to be alone with her husband, to celebrate their marriage properly. Finally, as the party wound down, Sok swept her into his arms and carried her out of the room to applause and laughter. Their suite was on the top floor, decorated with candles and flowers that filled the air with perfume. "Hello, Mrs. Sok," Sok said, setting her down gently. "Hello, husband," Amani replied, loving how the word felt in her mouth. They came together slowly, taking their time undressing each other, revealing skin inch by inch. Sock's hands trembled as he unzipped her dress, letting it pool at her feet. And when they finally joined together as husband and wife, it felt different, more meaningful, like they were sealing their promises with their bodies. "You're mine now." Sock breathed against her neck as they moved together. "Completely and forever mine." "And you're mine," Amani gasped back. "My husband, my love, my everything." They made love through the night, sometimes passionate and desperate, sometimes slow and tender. Between rounds, they talked and laughed and made plans for their future. "You're the only one who truly knows me," Sock said as dawn began to break. "The only person who sees past the boss everyone fears to the man underneath. You know my fears, my dreams, my weaknesses, and you love me anyway. You're the only one who ever really saw me," Amani replied, tracing patterns on his chest. "Not just the beautiful woman everyone stares at, but the person inside. You see my strength, my intelligence, my ambition. You encourage me to be more, not less. How could I not love you?" Soak kissed her softly. "I promise you, Amani, I will spend every day of our marriage making sure you never regret choosing me. I will give you the world. I will protect you with my life. I will love you until my last breath." "I know," Amani said simply. "That's why I married you." As the sun rose over the ocean, painting their room in golden light, they fell asleep in each other's arms. Husband and wife, partners in every way that mattered, ready to face whatever came next, together. The mansion in Coral Gables was everything Amani had dreamed of, but never thought she'd have. Sock had brought her to see it 2 months after their wedding, parking in front of a sprawling property that looked like something from a magazine. "What do you think?" he asked, watching her face carefully. "I think it's beautiful," Amani replied, taking in the iron gates, the manicured lawns, the house that seemed to go on forever. "Whose is it?" "Ours if you want it," Sock said with a smile. "I bought it last week. Thought we could design the inside together, make it truly ours." Amani threw her arms around his neck, kissing him enthusiastically. "Are you serious? We can really make this our home?" "Our home," Soak confirmed. "Where we'll build our life together, where we'll raise our family someday, where we'll grow old and annoying each other." They spent the next months transforming the mansion into something uniquely theirs. Amani insisted on incorporating Tanzanian art and textiles, vibrant colors and patterns that reminded her of home. Sock added Korean touches, screens and pottery and furniture that honored his heritage. The result was stunning, a perfect blend of both their cultures that felt warm and welcoming despite the mansion's size. But more than just decorating a house, they were building a real partnership. True to his word, Soak began teaching Amani about his business. Not the dangerous parts, but the legitimate companies he owned. Import and export firms, real estate holdings, restaurants and nightclubs. He valued her opinions and often implemented her suggestions. "You have good instincts," he told her one evening as they reviewed reports in his home office. "Better than some men who've been in this business for decades. I ran my own company, remember?" Amani teased. "I know how to read numbers and spot opportunities." Gradually, Soak began stepping back from the more dangerous aspects of his organization. He promoted loyal men to handle things that required force or intimidation, while he focused on growing the legal businesses. It was a slow transition, but Amani could see how much happier he was. Less stressed, more present in their relationship. They hosted their first big party 6 months after moving in. It was Soak's idea, a housewarming that would bring together both sides of his world. His business associates, the men who worked for him and knew what he really did, mixed with new friends from legitimate business circles who saw him as just a successful entrepreneur. Amani worked for weeks, planning every detail. She wanted the evening to be perfect, to show everyone that Soak was more than just the dangerous boss they knew, that he was capable of having a normal life, a beautiful home, a happy marriage. The night of the party, the mansion glowed with lights and music. Guests filled the rooms, admiring the decor and the food that had been catered from the best restaurants in Miami. Amani wore a stunning dress that hugged her curves, and she noticed how Soak's eyes kept finding her across the room, dark with promise for later. "This is incredible," Taemin said, now promoted to managing one of Soak's nightclubs. "You've really made this place a home." "We both did," Amani corrected, smiling at where Sok stood, talking to some investors. Together. As the evening progressed, Amani found herself on the back terrace, looking out at the pool that sparkled with underwater lights. She was so focused on the view that she didn't hear Sok approach until his arms wrapped around her waist. "Having fun?" he murmured, pressing a kiss to her neck. Amani leaned back against him. "But I'll be having more fun when everyone leaves and I have you all to myself. Is that so?" Sok's hands tightened on her waist. "And what exactly do you plan to do with me?" Amani turned in his arms, looping her hands around his neck. "I have some ideas, but first, I have something to tell you." Something in her tone made Sok's expression shift from playful to concerned. "What is it? Are you okay?" "I'm perfect," Amani assured him. "Better than perfect, actually." She took a deep breath, her heart pounding with excitement and nerves. "I'm pregnant, Sok. We're going to have a baby." For a moment, Sok just stared at her, his eyes wide with shock. Then his face transformed into pure joy. "Really? You're really pregnant?" "Really," Amani confirmed, laughing as he picked her up and spun her around. "Careful, don't make me dizzy." "A baby," Sok breathed, setting her down gently like she was made of glass. "We're having a baby. When? How far along? Are you feeling okay? Do you need to sit down? Should you even be at this party?" "I'm fine," Amani said, touching his face. "I'm only about 2 months along. I found out last week but wanted to wait until tonight to tell you. I thought, what better time than when we're celebrating our new home and our new life?" Sok kissed her then, soft and reverent, like she was something precious beyond measure. "I love you," he said. "I love you so much. You've given me everything, Amani. A home, a real life, and now a child. I don't know what I did to deserve you, but I'm grateful every single day." "I love you too," Amani replied. "Now come on, we should get back to our guests before they think we disappeared." But Sok kept his hand on her stomach for just a moment longer, his expression one of wonder. "Our baby," he said softly. "Part of both of us. A new beginning." The rest of the party passed in a happy blur. They didn't announce the pregnancy yet, wanting to keep it their secret for a little longer. But Amani caught Seok watching her constantly, his eyes filled with protective concern whenever she so much as lifted a glass. When the last guests finally left, Seok swept Amani into his arms despite her protests. "You shouldn't be carrying me. I should be taking it easy." "You are taking it easy," Sok replied, climbing the stairs to their bedroom. "Because I'm carrying you." He laid her on their bed gently, then began undressing her with careful hands. "We can still do this, right? It won't hurt the baby?" "The doctor said it's perfectly safe," Amani assured him, pulling him down for a kiss. "Now stop worrying and make love to your wife." Sok needed no further encouragement. Their lovemaking that night was tender and emotional, Sok touching her like she might break, whispering promises to both her and the baby, growing inside her. When they finally lay satisfied and sleepy in each other's arms, Amani felt completely content. The months that followed were some of the happiest of their lives. Amani's belly grew round with their child, and Sok became almost comically protective. He insisted she rest constantly, hired the best doctors in Miami, and nearly had a heart attack any time she felt the slightest discomfort. "I'm pregnant, not dying," Amani would remind him, laughing at his worried face. "I know," Sok would reply, "but you're carrying the most precious thing in my world, both of you. I can't help being careful." He showed her sides of himself she'd never seen before, soft, gentle, openly emotional. He talked to her belly every night, speaking in Korean and telling their baby stories about both their heritages. He built the nursery himself, painting and assembling furniture with help from Taemin and Donghyun. "Who knew the scary boss had such a domestic side?" Amani teased one afternoon, watching him hang curtains with intense concentration. "Only you get to see this side," Seok replied. "Everyone else still gets the scary boss." It was true. While Sok was gentle and loving at home, he was still respected and feared in his business world. But Amani noticed the change in him. He was quicker to find peaceful solutions, less likely to resort to violence, more focused on building something good rather than just maintaining power through fear. "You've changed him," Taemin told her one day when he stopped by to drop off some documents. "Made him better, more human." "He changed himself," Amani corrected. "I just gave him a reason to want to." When their daughter was finally born on a warm Miami evening, Sok cried openly. He held the tiny baby with shaking hands, tears streaming down his face as he looked at Amani with pure love. "She's perfect," he whispered. "You're both perfect. Thank you, Amani. Thank you for giving me this family, this life, this happiness I never thought I'd have." They named her Nia, which meant purpose in Swahili, because she had given both their lives new meaning. Life settled into a beautiful routine. Amani managed several of Sok's legitimate businesses from home, proving herself to be as sharp in the business world as he'd always known she was. Sok split his time between work and family, making sure to be home for dinner every night and refusing to miss any of Nia's important moments. One evening, about a year after Nia was born, they sat together on their terrace watching the sunset. Nia was sleeping in her crib upstairs, and they had a rare moment of peace together. "Do you remember that night in the club?" Sok asked suddenly, pulling Amani closer. "When you told me I couldn't satisfy you?" Amani laughed, remembering that confident woman who'd thought she had everything figured out. "I was so arrogant, so sure I knew what I wanted and that no man could give it to me." "You were magnificent," Sok corrected. "Beautiful and fierce and completely irresistible. I knew right then that I had to prove you wrong, that I had to show you that I was different. And you did," Amani said softly. "You satisfied me in ways I never even knew I needed. You gave me passion and excitement and danger, but you also gave me safety and love and a home. You saw me, really saw me, and loved everything you found. I still can't believe you chose me," Sok admitted. "This dangerous man with a violent past and a complicated present. You could have had anyone, Amani. Why me?" "Because you're real," Amani replied simply. "Because you never pretended to be something you weren't. Because you challenged me as much as I challenged you. And because when I'm with you, I'm exactly who I'm supposed to be. Not too much, not too little. Just right." Sok kissed her softly. "I love you. More today than yesterday, more tomorrow than today. Forever." "Forever," Amani agreed, settling into his arms as the sun painted the sky in brilliant colors. She thought about that woman she'd been, searching for excitement and adventure and something to make her feel alive. She'd found all that, and so much more. She'd found a partner who was strong enough to stand beside her, gentle enough to hold her when she needed comfort, and passionate enough to keep her satisfied in every possible way. Most of all, she'd found home. Not just the mansion they lived in, but in Sok's arms, in their daughter's smile, in the life they'd built together against all odds. "What are you thinking about?" Sok asked, noticing her smile. "About how a stupid challenge in a nightclub led to this," Amani replied. "About how the best thing I ever did was tell you that you couldn't satisfy me, because it made you determined to prove me wrong." "And did I?" Sok asked with a grin. "Prove you wrong?" Amani looked at him. At this man who'd given her everything she'd never known she needed. "Every single day," she said, "in every possible way. You don't just satisfy me, Sok. You complete me." As the stars began to appear overhead and their daughter slept peacefully upstairs, Amani knew with absolute certainty that she was exactly where she was supposed to be, with the man she was meant to love, living the life they'd chosen together, and she couldn't imagine being satisfied by anyone or anything else ever again. If you loved this passionate journey from challenge to forever, don't forget to subscribe and hit that like button for more steamy romance stories that will keep you hooked until the very end. Turn on the notifications, too, so that you don't miss out on the next story.